armed confrontation. So stoppage of this would mean peace for them. Or probably suppression of insurgent or secessionist movements in other parts of the Philippines. That could mean peace for some people in these different contexts. However, next slide please. However, these definitions cannot answer questions on why people are still restless and hungry, or there is no well-being. They are not happy. Because if you're peaceful, if the situation is peaceful already, people are happy. There is general well-being. Those are very important indicators of peace. But why is it that when there is already stoppage of war or when there is absence of armed confrontations, people are still not happy? They are still restless, like what is happening in different parts of the world now. European countries, which used to be very, very happy countries, are now experiencing restlessness. Okay? Actually, peace thinkers on analysts believe that the antithesis of peace is not war, but it is poverty exacerbated by greed. And when we consider exacerbation by greed, that would mean so many things. For example, why is the world destroyed now? It is because of greed. You see, it's not just poverty. But poverty is because of the absence of resources, and these resources had been siphoned by more powerful countries or more powerful individuals. That's why other people are experiencing poverty. And they cannot be happy for this. They should not be proud of this, that they are so happy, they are so rich, because they become so out of the resources that they have siphoned from, especially the defenseless or the weak countries. Like we used to be a defenseless and weak country. But according to our current president, the Philippines is no longer one of the poor countries in the world. So have we become rich? Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here is a definition of the encompassing, authentic, sustainable, or everlasting peace provided by the Culture of Peace Framework by UNESCO. By the way, let me repeat, why is it that we should level off on the definition of peace? As I have said a while ago, it is necessary that we understand what peace is, probably in the shallow context or in the sustainable, comprehensive, or authentic context, because this has something to do with the local peace initiatives and the peace building initiatives that you can do later. We're not talking here out of nonsense. There should be something that you could do after this, because as you are peace educated, you cannot say that you are peace educated if you do not do anything. Peace education is both theory and practice. This is the theory. What will be your practice later? I think this is one of the main reasons why your professors have asked you to join this seminar. So the comprehensive or the sustainable, comprehensive, encompassing, meaning tanan na tanan, lahat na kasali. Authentic, totoong totoo. Sustainable, or everlasting, no, long-lasting, forever. That should be authentic peace. Yan ang totoong peace. Hindi yung little pieces of peace that we experience because there are no more criminalities, because there are no more armed confrontations, because these things are temporary. They are experienced in just a short while. After that, balik na naman, no? So, dapat yung sustainable or everlasting peace. This may be very demanding or very ambitious, but we have to know this so that we can direct or we could fit our local peace initiatives or peace-building activities that we would do in the future. Okay, ano daw? Itong UNESCO definition, bakit UNESCO? UNESCO is United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. This is the committee tasked by United Nations to ensure that peaceful education and education on peace is spread worldwide. Now, we will find out that this was not a need only after the Second World War. The need is continuing, all the more that it is needed nowadays. Now, so it is a creation, a committee of the United Nations. UN itself was organized by around 40 or 45 countries that gathered together after World War II to talk about preventing the recurrence of war and the atrocities that were experienced during the war and even a little after the war. And itself is a peace organization. It should be a peace organization. Your internet connection daw is unstable. Very bad this internet. Okay, so we proceed. Paspasta. Habulin natin itong internet. Next slide, please. And then, we do not just define peace, but peace as a culture. If we define culture of peace, first we define culture, and then we define peace. And that is where we can define culture of peace, because it has a deep bearing on peace-building initiatives. So culture is a set of attitudes. Everybody knows this: values, interests, behaviors, principles, beliefs, and traditions lived by any individuals and commonly shared by any group of people in a given community. So values, interests, behaviors, the way we eat, the way we sleep or pattern of sleeping, our beliefs, superstitious beliefs or beliefs in the supernatural beings like God or Allah, and then traditions, mga damit natin, and everything. This is culture. It is the way any group of people live, think, feel, organize themselves, celebrate, and share life rooted in systems of values, meanings, worldview, expressed visibly in languages, gestures, symbols, rituals, styles, and others. What's a worldview? Ito yung pananaw mo. Ang pananaw mo ay depende sa iyong kultura. For example, hindi ka gagawa ng mga krimen dahil ang krimen na ito ay iniisip mo na violations sa mga batas ng Diyos or ni Allah. So you will not do these things. That's a worldview. Or probably some people do not eat animals, no? Yung people practicing non-violence, they do not eat animals because that is violence. Kasi sabi nila, animals have life. Meron ba, like plants and animals, plants also do have life. Pero between plants and animals, mas malalim ang buhay ng mga animals. So we better not eat animals. We can eat plants. Okay? Pero between itlog and manok, ang manok may buhay. Ang itlog may buhay ba siya? Or siyang nagbibigay ng buhay? No? Okay. So, next slide please. Culture as a way of life. As a way of life, culture becomes a living pattern by which a group of people can design a collective consciousness. What's a collective consciousness? When people tend to move in the same direction, think in the same direction, feel in the same way, and live in like manner, we say that there is collective consciousness. Itong pag-iisip na may pagkakaisa, collective consciousness. Like, is there a collective consciousness for peace? Or many of us do not like peace? Or many of us would feel that there should be war to be able to have peace? No? It's collective consciousness.
How many of you, probably those people have not experienced what war is, are those people who would opt for wars for the attainment of peace. Gusto nila, sabi nila, dapat magkagera muna bago magkaroon ng kapayapaan. Kasi hindi nila naranasan paano ang gera. Hindi nila naranasan yung magpalutang-lutang sa mga tubig dyan sa mga marshy islands, mga marshy lands. At saka yung maglakad ng kung ilang kilometro araw at gabi para lang makaiwas doon sa barilan. No? Yan yung mga taong madaling magsabi na to be able to have peace, there should be war. And if there are so many people in one ethnic group feeling the same way and thinking the same way, we say that that is their collective consciousness. But if most people in a certain ethnic groups would want for peace, would opt for peace no matter what, then that is their collective consciousness. And behavior as a community within and relating with other groups of people and cultures in their environment. Next slide, please. Next slide. Culture as a way of life. As a way of life, culture becomes a living pattern by which a group of people can design. Tapos na yun, no? Next, please. Next slide. Peace. So, culture. What is peace? Kasi culture of peace ang define natin. More than just the absence of war. It is the realization of justice and it involves a network of legitimized social relationships. Legitimized social relationships would mean social relationships that are approved by the whole group. For example, marrying women as young as 12. Is this allowed by the culture? If it is not, then that is not a legitimized social relationship. Or if there are two groups living near each other and each of them will be discriminating against each other, then that is their legitimized social relationships, but that is unpeaceful. Pag mayroong mga Ilonggo, for example, may Moro naman doon sa unahan, if they keep on accusing each other and they are discriminating against each other, is that a legitimized relationship at this point in time? Not anymore. Why? Because people have already been exposed to many different concepts of peace. Magkaibigan na yan. Pero panahon ng Ilaga at saka ng black shirts at saka ng Barakuda, yun. Ang Ilonggo pag nakakita ng Moro at ang Moro pag nakakita ng Ilonggo parang na-high blood sila, no? And they would like to kill each other. That was before. But now, if a Muslim would do that or an Ilonggo would do that, that's not anymore a legitimate social relationship. It is a state where choices are continuously being made to remove structural violence. We define structural violence as inequalities that are built into the structure, into the social structure and the political structure. And because they are built in, it's so difficult to get rid of them. For example, if you look at our movie industry, who are there? Sino ang nandyan? You look at John Lloyd Cruz. He speaks well, he speaks with sense, correct English, very sensible person. Bea Alonso, ganda mag-English, no? Speaks with sense, highly educated. So, an epitome of a woman who is highly educated. Si Dominic, ganoon din. Si Ian Veneracion, ganoon din. May pobre ba na naging actress or actor? Baka si Melay lang, no? From Jensen. Pero Melay was also a student of Mindanao State University. Not so poor. Okay?
Si John Regala po.
Sino?
Si John Regala.
Si John Regala? Ano bang istorya niya?
Kasi wala na po pera po. Tapos afterwards, no friends surrounds him because he has no money. So, nung panahonan na kasikatan niya, he has a lot of money, but now, he has no money and he has no friends at all. So the lesson there, if you have no money, you have no friends.
Buhay pa ba siya?
Yes,
Buhay pa
still
ba?
alive, but of course, he's still
Yeah.
suffering from the poverty that he has right now. But that was
Pero,
one of our lessons in our lives.
yeah. One realization, sir, no? Ang type of friendship that there could be when people
Yes,
are poor, when people are rich.
yes,
Magkaiba.
exactly. If you
When
are
people are,
with all due
yes,
respect, Doc, if you are rich, you are recognized as a relative. But
yeah,
if you are not rich, no one knows you, and everyone
yeah.
neglects you. That's the reality.
Even
Yeah,
even if you are rich, but if
yes,
you do not give money, you still will not be recognized. It's all about
precisely,
money.
precisely. That's
Yeah.
the reality.
Although this is not the general rule, sir, there are always exceptions, di ba? We
Yes,
can
but
always
there's
talk
always an
about
exemption on that.
exception. May mga rich people din na, ito si Luxin, si Angel Luxin, mayaman siya, di ba? May
Yes,
mga millions. Si Bea Alonso, they are helping the frontliners
yes.
and
He has a lot
pero
of farm, a
they,
huge land,
mm,
coverage in Cambridge.
yeah. So, there are always exceptions. Okay, what is culture of peace? A culture of peace therefore is the wholeness of life, walang pagka-broken, no? Walang pagka-broken. Wholeness of life, buo ang buhay mo. Pag marami kang problema, marami kang mga frustrations, your life seems to be broken. Pero if there is a culture of peace, there is wholeness of life, where every person can live with dignity, where there is appreciation and respect for the integrity of all persons, a way of life that promotes the well-being of the human beings, regardless of cultural backgrounds and historicity. Okay, so ito ang culture of peace. Very, very beautiful situation if this can be realized. But the question is, why would we like peace to be a part of culture or a culture itself? Kasi culture of peace, kultura ng kapayapaan. It is because ang kultura, if you have realized this, ang hirap palitan. Of all the things that are difficult to change, it's culture. Culture is difficult to change. No? There are dynamics, but probably part of the cultural practices only. Not the whole culture. Ang hirap niyang palitan. So kung ang peace, ang kapayapaan ay maging kultura, mahirap na siyang palitan. Parte na siya ng ating pamumuhay. It's part of our way of life. No? So, our actions would not be hypocritical kasi parte na ng ating pamumuhay. If it is not a part of our culture, pwedeng palitan, pwedeng, hindi naman yan ugali namin, hindi man talaga yan ugali namin. No? Ganon. So, what are the 7 elements of culture of peace? You have compassion and social justice. But social justice, we have several types of justice. Social justice will hinge upon other forms of justice. Legal justice, natural justice, environmental justice, economic justice, political justice, and others. Meron pa kayong naisip? Other types of justice? Teka lang.
As well as
Yung social justice, compassion, is beyond awa. Hindi lang yung naaawa ka lang na may tao dyan na Meron din tayong limitation dyan sa compassion. Kagaya ng sabi ni Jesus Christ, do not give a man or humans or your neighbors or friends fish every day. Teach them how to fish. That is the brand of compassion for Christianity. Ang sa Islam naman, meron tayong zakat. And what's the other one? Sadaka. No? Zakat is involuntary, sadaka is voluntary. Okay? So, social justice is about There are types of social justice like procedural social justice. There is justice in the procedures. Distributive justice. There is justice in the distribution of benefits. For example, nowadays, there is COVID-19. Are we part of the orders or the directives that are given by the government? Parang recipient lang tayo. Tinatanong ba tayo? Procedural social justice. Distributive, yung iba mayroong 7,000, may 10,000, may 4,000, depende siguro sa friendship, no? So that's not distributive social justice. Ang distributive social justice is arrangements should be made that the greater good should be for the least, yung mga wala, yung mga may maraming kakulangan sa buhay. Sila ang dapat marami matatanggap. Yung sinabi nila na everyone should have a share of the SAF, no? That's not true. Kasi may mga tao mayaman na, hindi na sila bibigyan para mas malaki-laki naman yung ano. Pero mayroon pa rin nangungurap, no? Kinukuha nila ang pera ng SAF na para sa mga tao. Ewan kung anong konsensya meron ba sila. Anyway, sa mga calamities, ang dami talagang yumayaman. Tingnan nyo na lang kung bigla na lang silang magkaroon ng sasakyan, magkaroon ng magandang bahay. After sa maraming calamities, maraming gera, no? Konsensya na lang siguro. Okay. And then you're dismantling the culture of war. We have a culture of war all throughout the world ever since until now. Tell me a country which does not have its military force. Very few. I think there are only 2 or 3 countries without military force. Only police force. May police force lang sila, wala silang military force. But all over the world, China, Japan, USA, France, UK, USA, Australia, Canada, very strong military. The Philippines, do we have a strong military? Only for our proportion, no? Unlike China, parang everything is dedicated to the military. India is fast becoming China also in terms of the military. And then yung mga natin, yung mga nuclear warheads, they do not declare ilan na ang nuclear warheads meron sila. So the stronger the country, the more the nuclear heads, and the stronger the country, the more they could hide their number of nuclear heads. USA would say only, wow, we only have this. UK will say, wow, we only have this. And you know what? For the Philippines, isang nuclear warhead lang. Tunaw na tayo. Kaya huwag nating kanti-kantihin ang China. Hindi natin kaya ang China. Although, we should not be like underdogs. Pero we have a very, very, very intelligent president. Kaya niya yan. No? Bugoy ang atong presidente. Medyo amigo dire, amigo dito, suntok dire, suntok doon. No? Medyo, that is his brand of governance. Yes? Any question? Any question? And then promoting human rights. There is one thing that we should remember here. Human rights is everybody's rights. It's not only the rights of the prisoners. It's not only the rights of the criminals. But everybody's rights, including those who are victims of criminalities. Katong mga na-rape, may human rights din yun. Lalo na. So wag nating i-focus masyado ang human rights doon sa mga perpetrators. Pero pag ikaw naman ay isang human rights organization and you get funding for education and for you get funding for you choose your sector. You choose your sector na lang. Yung sector mo mas madali yung mga piniriso. Wala kayo'y gasto. Pero kung mag-human rights education ka dito sa mga small communities, malaking trabaho yan. No? Magalit na ang magalit. Total, kayo lang naman. Atin-atin lang ito. Huwag niyo naman akong isumbong. No? Next is intercultural solidarity. Well, we are moving towards that direction. Friendships among the 180 or more ethnic groups in the Philippines. 18 indigenous peoples in Mindanao, 13 Islamic groups, and then a number of Christian groups. We call this the tribe people. Although many people do not like the term tribe people because it's divisive, whatever. No, we use terms only. We call those operational definitions. Huwag kayong makipag-away kasi peace kayo ha. Huwag kayong makipag-away sa definition lang. Huwag kayong makipagdebate sa religion lang. Kasi sometimes, because of definitions, nag-aaway ang mga tao. So sasabihin nila na ganito ang definition. You say, madaling sabihin na, okay, we use operational definition. Those who are into research know this. Okay, building inner peace, that's inner peace with yourself, harmony with yourself, harmony with others, harmony with the environment, and harmony with God. If you have all these four harmonies, then you are definitely building inner peace. You see, hindi lang naman pala inner peace. Most people believe that peace is inner peace. No, inner peace is only one of the types of peace or the categories of peace. And then living in harmony with the earth. This is the most crucial topic nowadays. Itong living in harmony with the earth. This is something to do with our environment. And I would like you, if ever you would like to decide on what local peace initiatives to do, to focus on the environmental crisis. Okay, what is happening in European countries nowadays is very, very unimaginable, unthinkable, hindi malubos maisip. Na these countries na puno ng mga ice caps, magkaroon sila ng flood. At yung mga countries na very, very cold, ay ngayon nagkakaroon ng forest fires. United States at saka Canada. And may heat wave. How is that? I'm expecting heat wave in Saudi Arabia or other Middle Eastern countries. But not Canada and United States, no? Ano ba? Nabaligtad na ba ang mundo? You know what? Itong living in harmony with the earth, we have failed God towards this because we have never lived in harmony with the earth. We have destroyed our earth. Our earth's feeding and carrying capacity is already beyond its limits. Di na kaya ng mundo ang feeding at saka ang carrying. Ang carrying yung pagkarga lang ng tao. Yan ang carrying capacity. Ang feeding yung pagpakain ng tao, di na kaya. That's why many of us have to die so that others may live. Yan ang ginagawa nila ngayon. They are using COVID-19 as the strategy, as the technique. You ask who? Pakitawagan ng si Fauci about this. He is now in a hot seat. Has been investigated. Also China for they're accusing each other. China said the Wuhan laboratory is financed by Americans like Fauci, no? Siya ang nag-finance ng kuwan na yan, and Fauci is connected to Pfizer. Pero investigations are still going on. Okay, so ganon ang kanilang solution. Hindi na kaya because governments cannot tell their people to stand by in their homes. If we only stand by in our homes, we will not use fuel excessively. Hindi tayo mag-angkat ng mga ngayon, no trips. Kaunti ang eroplano, so kaunti ang mga fuel na ginagamit natin. Na hindi masyadong and wag naman magalit yung mga nagtitinda ng oil dyan kung wala masyadong bumibili na. Hindi na nga tayo dapat magbili-bili. Dapat nga, no movement day. 3 days or 4 days a week, no movement day. Walang gasolina. Or balik tayo doon sa padyak. Yang sikat, no? na walang, or mga electric cars, electric motorcycles, na hindi nagagamit ng mga, ano. So, yan ang sitwasyon ng ating Earth ngayon. And no less than NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, is admitting malapit na yung mga solar bursts. How can we be affected by solar bursts? Yung radiation pala from the sun would take 11 years to travel. So, nakaalis na sila sa sun, yung mag-travel for 11 years. Malapit na yan darating dito. So, abutan na tayo ng solar bursts? Or solar lang ba ang burst? Or will the earth also burst? Or totoo yung mga sinasabi sa Biblia? I do not know how is that said in the Quran. In the Quran, is Quran talking about the end of the world? Pero in the Bible, merong mga ganyan. Ang inundation, experiences of inundation before, which was worldwide, is now becoming also almost worldwide. Reklamo yung mga Germans na yan, mga Swiss na yan, na binabaha sila. Hindi nga nagareklamo masyado ang mga taga Maguindanao na para namang araw-araw binabaha na sila. Hindi na sila iniiwan ng mga baha. Or yung ano, because we are an archipelago, mababa ang ating ano doon sa level ng pag mag-melt. If all those glaciers in these countries will melt, and then when avalanches will occur, especially at the same time in different countries, the water level will rise. And they're saying Manila will be one of the cities. Number one country will be Kiribati. You read about Kiribati, the first country that will be submerged. Switzerland will also be submerged. And now that is becoming true to Switzerland. So, I am encouraging you, if you want to do local peace initiatives, focus on environmental crisis. And then the seventh, this is added by Dr. Toswihin, of course, with the encouragement of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. By the way, Dr. Toswihin is a UNESCO man, and he won a UNESCO Peace Award in 2000. He was an awardee of UNESCO. And it's UNESCO that brought peace education to the Philippines. And then peace education was brought by Dr. Toswihin and Dr. Virginia Flores Cacawagas to Notre Dame University in 1987. I came to Notre Dame University in 1989, and I became one of the disciples of Toswihin until now. Still a disciple. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Peace as absence of violence. This definition. But violence as physical violence, structural violence, psychological violence, and cultural violence. You know physical violence. You know structural violence. The inequalities that are built into the structure, we are referring to this as structural violence. What about psychological violence? When President Digong said that those who will wander, unvaccinated people who will wander, will be apprehended by the police and brought back to their homes. That's a threat. That's a psychological threat. I was so afraid of that. Pero when Secretary Harry Roque spoke, he said, it cannot be done by the police or the law enforcers because there is no law yet. Wala pang batas. Unless gagawa sila ng batas, a Republic Act. Hindi nga kaya yan siguro ng ordinance. Unless inspired by IATF. Wala pang batas. Pero it's a psychological violence. But you know, Digong, when he speaks, parang siyang tatay. Parang tatay ba na Bisaya? Ganyan talaga. Mga nanay na Bisaya. There are even nanay na Bisaya who would say, hey, ikaw, balian pa kag bukog ka ron. You know, it's your child. And then balian mo ng bukog. Pero that is to prevent you from doing something that will bring you misfortune in the future. Okay, next slide, please. Peace of as absence of violence. We go forward. Next, please. Admin. Okay, cultural violence. Cultural violence is violence that is done by the culture to its people, not by the people to the culture. When you say, for example, the clitoral circumcision, pagputol ng clitoris ng isang batang babae, no, puputulin siya. You know, this happened in Africa because of the belief that, there is a huge population of African republics, and they were thinking that the reason for this, kay mga igat ang mga babae dito, kay dagan ang ilang mga anak. Kung ganyan naman, mas igat po ning taga-China, mas igat ning taga-India, kay dagko po silang mga population. Hindi siguro. Kawawa naman yung clitoris ng ano. That's cultural violence. Pero, I think that has been stopped now. Among Muslims, I hear na parang karayom lang siya, itusok, no? Hindi talaga puputulin. Itutusok lang siya. Parang ceremonial na siya. Hindi talaga yung puputulin using mga knives that will cause inflammation and others. Okay, so we have defined peace, and we're saying that peace should be made a culture. So we are now ready to tackle what are local peace initiatives. Again, we use an operational definition here because we have to differentiate local peace initiative from peace building, because peace building actions are also peace initiatives. A peace initiative can be any intervention or action designed to attain peace. A peace talk, for example, is a peace initiative. We take an operational definition here because the term local has been attached to it. The net cannot give a comprehensive definition. Local peace initiative, probably owing to the fact that peace matters cannot be localized because it involves a wide range of issues and actors. For example, poverty cannot be localized in your barangay. Your barangay people or barangay officials are not the ones causing the poverty of some people. It's nationwide and even worldwide. And we can even go back to the historical times when the Spaniards and the Americans would come and make hakot of all our natural resources. Pero matagal na masyado yan. Pag peace, medyo kalimutan na muna natin yan. Kasi walang katapusan ang pag-istorya natin tungkol sa mga Amerikano at sa mga Espanyol. But it cannot be denied that they have been major part of the poverty that is experienced by the Filipinos. And the wide gap between the rich and the poor. Imagine, there are only very few rich, but there's so many poor. How come? Ano ni? Naunsa ni? Bakit? Anong nangyari? Ang dami natin, mga poor. Kayo, poor ba kayo? Ha? Hindi. Hindi kayo poor. Kaya nyo nga laptop, hindi kayo poor. No? Ako lang ang poor kasi mahina ang net ko. Okay. The long-running Mindanao conflict involves not only the Moro provinces, but Filipinos, especially the Mindanaoans. Military solution that were applied affected heavily the coffers of the nation. Pag nagpaputok ang isang sundalo ng isang bala, how much does it cost? 30 pesos, 20 pesos? Multiply that by 30, yung laman ng isang magazine. And one squeeze, the soldiers will strafe. They will not squeeze only one bullet. Strapping ang style nila. Hindi yung individual bullet because they are not all snipers. There are only few snipers. Yan yung gumagamit ng tig-isang bullet. Ang iba, pulis at saka sundalo, strafing yan. Kaya isang quiz, ang daming naubos. No? At saka, we're not talking about frigate and mga aircraft carriers, yung binibili ngayon ng mga helicopters, yung C-130 na nahulog na yung isa, no? Dapat hindi nagagamitin ito. Vantage na mga sasakyan 1988 pag ginawa sa US. Binigay sa atin but not totally grant. Mayroong amount, may price yan. Okay. Every displacement affected thousands. O anong ginagawa natin? Tumutulong din tayo. Pag mayroong displacement, many farmers are displaced, many fishers are displaced. The fisher folk and the farmers are the producers of fish and rice or corn that we eat every day. So the law of supply and demand. Wala nang maka-farm dahil siguro hindi lang sa gera, nag-COVID pa. So no farmers, tataas talaga ang presyo. Law of supply and demand. Alam niyo yan. Okay. And then, gave opportunity to the rise of violent extremism. The war in Marawi is a consequence of what? Yung desire to establish a caliphate, pero sinakyan siya ng mga violent extremists. Pag may gera kasi madaling makapasok ang mga violent extremists. And in the first place, marami ng mga baril daan dito sa Mindanao. So, they will not come bringing their guns kasi meron na dito. There's an opportunity for the violent extremists. Okay. The root cause of armed conflict in Mindanao can be found in narrative of Mindanao people's continuing struggle for the right to self-determination. Para bagang, the Moro people, for example, were not given the right to self-determination because they were under for a long time to the governance of the imperial Manila. So, meron na ngayong meron na tayong we have yung batas ng Moro, BARM, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Pero delikado because we cannot realize itong BARM if there is no federalism. And I think they are not minding the federalism anymore. There's no representative or no congressman or congresswoman that is especially interested in federalism nowadays because BARM can only be realized kung mayroong federalism. Babalik na naman tayo sa mga gera niyan if that is the case. Okay, we move further. Next. Next slide. Okay. Any relevant action is a peace initiative. Those things that I've been talking about. Any action relevant to those will be a peace initiative. I have some suggestions here. Dialogue after conflicts, cultural or faith dialogue, community policing is a local peace initiative, no? Community policing among the law enforcement is a local peace initiative. Or it may be also is anything the matter? May problema tayo?
Yung microphone natin, the session is ongoing on, please. With all due respect, thank you.
Okay, by the way, before I proceed, may chat dito. Ano itong sinasabi ng chat? Sabi niya, in some cultures of Bangsamoro, from Dr. Sian. From Dr. Sian? In some cultures of Bangsamoro, there is such a thing as scraping of a foreskin on a female genitalia because he's a medical doctor. Just as circumcision for men where foreskin are removed. There are many studies that high incidence of cervical cancer among women, listen to this, with uncircumcised partners. Wow, delikado pala. My question is on cultural violence. Who shall determine about any practice that is culturally accepted? Okay, peace thinkers, peace educators, we determine. But we cannot change the culture of any other group. That's unethical. We educate these people so that they themselves will change that cultural practice. Hindi pwedeng pupunta tayo sa kanila at sabihin na, hindi tama yung ginagawa nyo. No? Sino ka? What right do you have? That's not peaceful. That's unethical. So the best that we can do is to educate. Pero here is, ano daw, in some cultures of the Bangsamoro, let us know kung anong mga cultures ito para kung may mga local peace initiatives man tayo, hindi natin masagasaan ito. Okay. We proceed. Any dialogues after conflicts, cultural or faith dialogue. Pag may naggera, pwede naman tayong mag-sponsor ng dialogue. But you know, of all the types of dialogues, ito yung this is a type of dialogue that is very difficult to attain. Pabalik-balik lang ang gulo, ang conflict. We did this, we were the sponsor. The funder was United Nations Development Program, and then we held that at a hotel, yung malapit sa regional government. Anong hotel ba yan?
Pasto.
So, ang
Alnor, Emanor?
yes? Hindi. Yung luma.
Istosan.
Susan. We brought them there. The group of yung commander, former MNL commander ng TRAN at saka na naging naging ng environment, DNR dati. And then bumalik siya sa bundok. And then yung kalaban niya, magkalapit lang man yan sila dyan. So, we sponsored a dialogue. And we used itong prince na anak ng sultan dyan sa yung palabas ng Cotabato City, di ba may sultanate dyan? We talked to the sultan, but the sultan at that time he was too weak or he was dying. So the prince, ang nakipag-negotiate yung princess, yung kapatid niya. So the princess went and finally, nag-usap sila dyan sa Estusan. Problema, kasi may mga malaking tao. Actually, if you are a sponsor of a dialogue, you are not the moderator, you are not the facilitator. I-sponsor mo lang, kausapin mo ang ako together with yung sila Serto, Abbas, and then si Carly Cerezo. We sponsored this. Pero hindi kami yung nag-facilitate or It happened. Nagkun sila. They shook hands. And they embraced. Pero after so many months, nagbalik din. Itong maganda, cultural or faith dialogue. What happens in a cultural dialogue? In a cultural dialogue, two people of different ethnic groups will just show to each other their cultural practices and their worldviews, their religions, principles, their laws. That's cultural dialogue. We did this with the 93 demobilized MNLF combatants who turned peace advocates, no? Under the sponsorship of Act for Peace. We did this in Bansalan, and then pinaluto lang namin sila ng kanilang mga pagkain na pinagyayabang ng kanilang mga tribo. So, yung chula itom o the tausog, and then yung yellow na rice ng mga Maranao, yung others, no? Daming mga pagkain. Everyone was observant on how their food was cooked. Itong pinagyayabang nilang mga pagkain, paano niluluto. Let's share the food. Ang saya. And then nagsayaw sila, nagpakitaan ng kanilang mga um, costumes sa tausog, and then yung mga malong ng mga Maranaos, mga Maguindanaos, mga magaganda, mga inaol, no? Walang tatalo doon sa mga Maguindanaoans. And we were so happy. They were so happy. We became friends. Before that, parang meron silang competition. Parang competition ng mga MNLF sa Tawi-Tawi, MNLF sa Lanao, MNLF sa Maguindanaoan. Pero right after that, we stayed at the Bansalan Convention Center for 5 days. Of course, that was a cultural peace seminar. Cultural dialogue. What is peace? Faith dialogue. A faith dialogue is two people of different faiths will also introduce each other's faith. For example, we did this under the sponsorship of Cantallopez Foundation of Peace Advocates Incorporated among Buluan youths, Christian and Muslim youths of Buluan. Magulo, parang mainit. Primero, mainit. The sponsor, the funder was UNDP, United Nations Development Program. And no less than the country representative was there. Si product na siya ng NDU. So he was there. Unang-una magulo. But the questions were valid. Like ang mga Muslims, their questions to the Christian youths were, bakit tatlo ang Diyos nyo? The way it was asked, parang siyang may galit and Pero they were laughing after that. So sabi ko, hindi naman siguro galit ito. But the MNLF peace advocates were there. Kampante lang ako. Di makasagot ang mga Christians. Ito na ngayon, because the Christians, wala na silang, lugar na yun, Sir JoArs, yung pagtuturo ng basic Christianity. What do you call that? So,
Katikisan, madam.
di makasagot ang mga Christians. I was the one who answered that. Pero there was one thing wrong with that. Kasi bago sila nag-dialogue, faith dialogue, the Christians were oriented and the Muslims were oriented. Finally, nagalit na talaga ang taga-Katabanga. Nag-reprimand nila yung mga Muslim youth. Kasi yung sa paraan ng pagtatanong nila, may something na, no? There was already conflict. Pero ito namang, ang nangyayari doon, ang mga Christian youth were women, and ang Muslim youth were men. Parang ganoon, no? So, hindi balance yung, But that was an experience. That was an experience for Katabanga. Although, may mga other experiences ako with Katabanga. Kami ni Dr. Nord Salam, we'll talk about that later. Community policing, as I have said, is a local peace initiative. Unless the law enforcer will stay for long in a certain community. And that would become a peacebuilding initiative. Pag matagal siya doon, different types of actions ang gagawin niya. That's already peacebuilding. Mayroong misunderstanding din tayo dito there is also a misunderstanding in the term peacebuilding, no? Okay. Educating the people for their rights and responsibilities. This can be a local peace initiative. Actions to protect or repair the ravaged environment. How to manage, for example, the water lily. Shall we cut them? Throw them? Saan sila i-throw? That can be a local peace initiative. Humanitarian actions such as feeding, provision of sheltered materials for the displaced. No? Peace education for the youth or other sectors. Madali ito for the educators. Peace education. Even right in your school. Or integration of peace education into the subjects that you're teaching. You may be teaching chemistry. You may be teaching physics. You may be teaching Filipino literature or others. You can uh, deliberately integrate peace education. That's a peace initiative, and that is still local. Uh, Program for fisher folk and farmers. How to breed, how to breed mga fish, for example, paano magparami ng fish. We will take care of the mangrove areas, and then yung mga farmers natin, how to breed, not the rice and corn of the types that are GMOs, like the pity corn, na, which are toxic or poisonous. No? Hindi yun. Yung mga indigenous varieties of rice and corn. That can be a local peace initiative. Pero before that, before we do this to them, let us educate them ourselves. Baka pati tayo nagtatanong pa sa sarili natin, paano ba tumutubo ang mais? Ano bang itsura niya? Malaki bang kanyang dahon? No? Okay. So, next slide please. Next slide.
Matulog.
Sample local peace initiatives, your programs on non-chemical farming, programs on waste disposal, other livelihood programs. But if there are organizations doing this already, pwede ka nang sumakay as an individual. It's not necessary that you will do this differently. Other livelihood programs, daming ngayon mga livelihood projects for the IPs. What do the IPs need? They need what? Ano bang pangangailangan ng mga IPs? Yun nga, yung indigenous cultivation, indigenous farming, indigenous fishing, not the fishing of the Lake Cebu type na ang Lake Cebu, the water of Lake Cebu has become very toxic already. Namamatay na lang sila bigla, pati mga tanong na nandoon sa lake, namamatay. Saka ang kulay ng tubig because of the feeds. Hindi siya indigenous. Providing the poor with legal assistance for the lawyers. How will you provide them legal assistance? Or pwedeng ituturo lang niyo paano pumunta ng PAW. That's already a local peace initiative. Pero if you do that to only one, we cannot call that peace initiative. You do that to many. And you invite other people to work with you. How to guide these people para makapunta sa PAW. No? Many others. Next slide, please. If local peace initiatives are done with the willing support of the people, the idea is highly laudable. For example, a group of graduate students may visit an IP community. Meron kaming IP community dati dyan sa Libungan. Dr. Alferez know that. Pero no movement pa man ngayon. No? Make friends with them, talk about their situation, listen to their problems. Si Ma'am Rose, meron siyang experience na hindi niya makakalimutan dito sa community na ito, IP community. If the people express desire to be helped, grab the opportunity. The students should grab this opportunity. Especially if they do not go there and say, you're so poor. Your conditions are very deplorable. Probably you need my assistance. You need our help. Hindi ganyan. Not nice. Look for an opportunity. Probably work with the social work or the ILG or the local government unit. That's what we did. Work with the local government unit. And then during the time, yung taga CCSPC, we went there. Meron ding program ang mga pulis yata noon. They were also giving food and slippers. Masaya. Masaya talaga. Pero one shot din lang. One shot. In this way, helping makes you feel good. It would also make the people feel good, the people that you help. Their need at the moment is fulfilled by you at least. No? And you will be carrying your organization. Like you are with the regional police office, or you are with Cotabato State University. This will give a boost to your organization. Okay, but sadly, the efforts cannot match the needs. It says here, very unfortunate. Besides, currently, the pandemic prevents mobility. But let us suffice talking about what were done in the past. It is sad to note that efforts in the past were always energized by external funding. Ito ang nakikita ko. Peace building initiatives, local peace initiatives were always energized by funding. Okay, so we continue. Examples of initiatives with external funding. Human Rights Education Program, Cotabato and North Cotabato, British Embassy, ang funder. Tri-People Dialogue Program, Australian Embassy. Dito kami yata ni Dr. Nur Salam, no? Ang consultants, and also we were moderators and facilitators. Children's Rights Program, UNICEF, United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, Peace Education Program, Catholic Relief Services, and United Nations Development Program in collaboration with Notre Dame University. Next slide, please. Human Rights for the Displaced, International Commission on Human Rights, More Women Empowerment, Oxfam UK, Women Health, United States for International Development, working with BARM Health, no? Water System Development, Multi-Donor, World Bank and others, agriculture infrastructure such as solar dryers and warehouses, World Bank and others. It's also multi-donor. Preventing and countering violent extremism, especially with the police training centers, United Nations Development Program, and Joint Peace and Security Teams Formation and Training, UNDP. We have to verify this if this is true. And then food and water, shelter materials, or humanitarian interventions. These are local peace initiatives. Food and water, shelter materials, government of different countries through their embassies, government and non-government agencies, private corporations, private individuals, academic institutions, international non-government organizations. Ito yung mga local peace initiatives. We continue. Especially during displacement, ito, no? Now we move to peace building initiatives. But what is peace building? How does it differ from peace initiatives? Peace building is defined as activities that go beyond crisis intervention. It's not only humanitarian intervention after long period of armed confrontation. They go beyond crisis intervention or conflict management, such as long-term development that focuses on developing social, governmental, and non-governmental, including religious mechanisms that favor non-violent, constructive means of attaining sustainable peace and development. If you do peace-building initiatives and you will be using plastics, that's not peaceful. It cannot be labeled as peace-building. It is a long-term and collaborative process as it involves changes in attitudes, behaviors, and norms. So it should change the people, it should change the local government officials, it should change the national government. This is an inspiration by Boutros Ghali, once a military man who was Secretary General of the United Nations. So he said, yan. Where everyone, the restoration of the conditions that bring about peace, where everyone lives in safety, without fear or threat of violence, where everyone is equal before the law, where the systems for justice are trusted, and fair and effective laws protect people's rights, where everyone is able to participate in shaping political decisions, and the government is accountable to the people, everyone has fair and equal access to basic needs for their well-being, such as food, clean water, shelter, education, healthcare, and a decent living environment where everyone has an equal opportunity to work and make a living, regardless of gender, ethnicity, or any other aspect of identity. Very, very demanding. Very, very comprehensive. That's peace building. And with the work that we have now, probably we cannot do this in full. Probably piece by piece, or we call this fragmented peace building. But fragmented peace building is not authentic peace building. Now, I will say to you some activities of some organizations, non-government organizations, thriving in the Cotabato area. First and foremost, you have Kaduntaya Foundation Incorporated. It is headed by Sir Gemel Alim. I am proud to say that he once worked with Notre Dame University and on community development work. And then later, he built his own non-government organization, Kaduntaya Foundation Incorporated. Now they have programs like community building and strengthening. We go back, please. Go back, please. We go back, please. To KFI. Okay. CBS, no? Community building and strengthening. Assist in installing community cooperation mechanisms and increasing the capacity of the members to engage in the community development arena by forming elements of conflict into cooperation, developing and enhancing leadership skill, enhancing community and organizational management capacities of different structures in place. Restoration. Why? What has happened? You know, when there is armed confrontation, people are not conscious of the conflict they create. Even the intervening organizations, they create conflict among the people. Yun lang, pagbigay mo ng humanitarian interventions, may may inequality doon. Like some people would complain, yung bigas na natanggap nila ganito lang. Walang tubig na natanggap. Nabigyan sila ng plastic container, pero butas. No? So, ang community building and strengthening is to restore these relationships because the community cannot move forward without repairing this. We continue. Kaduntaya Foundation. Next, CBS has three components. First, to address social issues and people's relationships. KFI uses community dialogues and negotiations as a method. Second, to open up avenues for people to legitimately express their views and advocate for the interests of the community through a legitimate institution. KFI promotes people's organization formation and capability building. Finally, KFI promotes participatory local governance to motivate people's organization to actively involve in local governance. Actually, that's what they do. First, they form civil society organizations. The one that is standing is CBCS, Consortium of Bangsamoro Civil Society. And there are also people's organizations or POs, like Chakap Kalilintan, no? that are working on the ground. Itong ginagawa ng KFI. So, because there is lean staff, this lean staffing, and KFI is serving many different communities in North Cotabato, in South Cotabato, Maguindanao, and even probably the island provinces. So, too few of them, so they need to organize civil society organizations and POs or people's organizations. You can also do that. Hindi kayo talagang Then, human rights and good governance, advocacy and support. Through human rights and good governance, advocacy and support, the level of awareness of grassroots communities on the social being is raised through education and promotion of human rights, advocacy of transparency, and accountability and active people's participation. Pero nga ang sabi nila, peace is the way to peace. Do not instigate rebellion when you do peace building. Huwag niyong painitin ang ulo ng mga tao. Kagaya ng mga nangyayari sa yung mga communist or insurgent communities na yung rara ang mga ano doon, mga estudyante, mga rara sila. At because of that, the rara strategy would, awaken the anger of the people. And they will easily join itong mga organizations that would instigate conflict in the future. So peace building man kaya, peace is the way to peace. So human rights advocacy of transparency and accountability, but not in the manner that we elicit from the people their anger and discontentment on the system. Because peace building is defeated. The purpose of peace building is defeated. Through peace building and disaster risk management, so hindi talaga mawala ang disaster risk management. Assist communities in addressing vulnerabilities to disasters like floods and others, both natural and human-induced, engaging in peace building and supporting the peace process. KFI provides trainings, raises awareness on disaster preparedness and management, and helps organize community-based disaster coordinating councils. Relief assistance, shelter and psychosocial and economic rehabilitation support are extended to survivors of disaster. Continue. Next is Cantallopez Foundation for Peace and Development Incorporated. Ito na yung group of demobilized, although we do not like to use the term demobilized, because they are still mobilizing themselves, but not towards war or armed confrontations, not anymore, towards peace. That's not demobilization. Because if people are demobilized, parang no movement. Murag senior citizen, stay at home. Ayaw paglakaw, pundo sa balay. No? Okay. So, they have organized themselves under the sponsorship of Act for Peace. Ito nga under the leadership of late JoArs. I miss him. Miss ko siya. He was a close friend. And so, under his leadership with funding from United Nations Development Program, we were able to develop. I was part of the development of the MNLF demobilized combatants who turned into Peace and Development Advocates or PDAs. Kaya Cantallopez Foundation for Peace and Development. Kulang pa pala ito. For Peace and Development Advocates Incorporated. KFPDAI. So please insert Development Advocates. Cantallopez Foundation, this is headed by Hadja Jubay Juculano, my very good friend. Ako, ang tawag nila sa akin, Lola daw ako ng Cantallopez. Lola ng Cantallopez Foundation. We go back. Cantallopez Foundation is headed by Hadja Jubay Juculano, who won an Untold Stories Award in 2007. The foundation is made up of former members of Oro National Liberation who are now no longer combatants but advocates of peace and development. All members of this organization have conducted trainings on community organization. Pag community organization, ang speakers nila from CO Multiversity. Also community development. Pag culture of peace, Cantallopez yan. Conflict transformation, Cantallopez. Dialogues, Cantallopez yan. After completing these trainings, all members serve as volunteers for the organization. We continue. The headquarters of Cantallopez is in Tenorio. Peace building programs in the Peace and Development Communities in Mindanao, funders, UNDP, IOM, humanitarian humanitarian, reconstruction, rehabilitation, development programs such as livelihood and others. Ito yung mga ano. Sa kanilang dialogues kami ni Dr. Nord Salam were moderators and facilitators. And then meron silang program, Islamic Financing Program. And in 2015, Katabang Foundation received the Triennial Award in Peace and Development by the Ramon Aboitiz Foundation Incorporated. I am one of the circle of laureates of Ramon Aboitiz Foundation. So I had the opportunity to nominate them as competitor for the Triennial Award. And they won as organization category because there were individuals and there were organization. I think they won $500,000. Binigyan din nila ako ng share. Okay. Catholic Relief Services is an international organization that works in a variety of areas in countries all over the world, including health, helping the refugees, crisis response, agriculture, peace building, and more. As part of their Justice and Peace Building Initiative, CRS works to foster inclusion, equity, and accountability. The programs in this are designed to minimize conflict and also minimize inequalities, specifically between genders. CRS offers jobs in research and analysis, program management, communications, fundraising, finance, and more relating to peace building and other initiatives. They will also help organizations raise their own funds. Yun ng CRS. Okay. Next. CRS has assisted several local NGOs, CSOs, POs, schools, including KFI, and local government charities in Mindanao. CRS initiated for the celebration of the Mindanao Week of Peace. Until now, we're still celebrating. Why should we celebrate it? Because celebrations are part of our culture. Didn't we say that they should be a part of culture? Therefore, there is a celebration of the Mindanao Week of Peace as part of our culture. It was also a strong force behind the organization of Ginapalad Taka Spaces for Peace. Ginapalad, Hinatilan, Nalapaan, I do not know what is this, Takepan, and others. I think there were 8 spaces of peace. This is after the war in 2003 and 2008. Our major wars, remember, 1997, major wars. Before pa, syempre yung mga wars in 1980s. Pero isa sa mga major wars natin, 1997, 2000, 2003, this was in Kitip, Raja Muda. And 2008, ito yung CBL. And then 2008, I think that's the last. Meron pa ba? Ito na yung other pero smaller na conflicts na. And then last itong Marawi. Those are the major wars affecting the more people. Other CRS peace building projects, assistance to land conflict affected people in Central Mindanao applying to 3B's binding bridging project. As the A3B experience shows, a focus on local policing and practices is both expedient and responsive to the what is happening to this. Humalis. Flexibility to adapt the actual circumstances in communities. Okay, we continue. Other CRS peace building projects. A3B also illustrates the critical role of civil society in laying the foundation for these localized policy changes, including demonstrating the potential for resolving seemingly intractable land conflicts. Intractable is a conflict that is almost perpetual. That is the conflict in Mindanao. It's intractable conflict. Hindi matapos-tapos. Just like the intractable conflicts in many African republics of Sudan, Mozambique, and others. No? So, yan, intractable land conflict the land conflict started during the Spanish regime onto the American regime. Ito nga yung one of the historical injustices that the Moro people are talking about. There is discrepancy in the distribution of land. When the Filipino-American government sent people to Mindanao in order to help till the land because they could see that Mindanao was no longer productive. When there were infestations, Governor Pershing of Zamboanga would say that the Moro people were too lazy to control the infestations. The American government or the American leaders did not know that when a certain land is infested, all that the Moro do would just move to another piece of land. The pest will later die, and they would come back. They will go back to that piece of land. The Americans did not know that. They thought of the Moro as lazy people. And then, so the American government brought in Cebuanos, Ilocanos, Ilonggos from Visayas and Mindanao. And there came a time when there was a law for titling. There was discrepancy now in the number of hectares distributed to Christians and Muslims. The Christians received more because the government say the hard tillers were to have more hectares of lands. But I do not know what was their basis when something could equate that also. It's the Moros being the owners of the land. But, the Moros did not care about titling because all they thought is that land could not be titled because the owner of the land is Allah. And the representatives of Allah are the sultans. So lang titulo-titulo. Nagising lang sila one day. May mga may-ari na pala. Yung declaration of the policy that all lands were declared public lands. Anong batas nito? Anong principle nito? Walang private ownership of land. The sultans did not know this. Public lands lahat. They did not know that. So, nagkaroon ng discrepancy in the distribution of lands. This is one of the historical injustices, which many Moro do not know. Many Moro people do not know. They keep on saying historical injustices. But what are the specific examples of these historical injustices? Oh. Pwede ba bawiin ito mga lupa? Hindi rin. Kasi may mga batas na on titling. Hindi naman pwede na basta-basta makuha yan. Kaya nga, the International Commission on Human Rights and on Refugees, they are helping the refugees or the displaced get back their lands through legal means. May batas. So nagpa-survey, with support from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So laws are beginning to work. Okay. So next, please. Next. Bangsamoro Development Authority or BDA. Ang vision nila ay dynamic learning organization striving to be the lead institution for change, promoting a model of development anchored on the belief of stewardship and values of trust, excellence, inclusiveness, fairness, transparency, and accountability. Ganda. BDA commits to participatively determine, design, lead, and manage rehabilitation and development of conflict-affected areas in Mindanao. As a learning organization, it strives towards institutional competence, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability. Kaya, ang other funding institutions now medyo atras-atras na sila. Because there is now the Bangsamoro autonomous government, autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. So CRS hindi na masyado unless their health is sought. Okay, next please. BDA. You know where BDA is. You know what BDA does. Building the capacity of the Bangsamoro was among the primary intention for BDA establishment. It was understood that to be able to perform its mandate to lead, manage, and determine relief and rehabilitation, the BDA shall build its capacities as an institution. Continue, please. Next. Next slide. Program for local economic development through enhanced governance and grassroots empowerment pledge. Focuses on confidence and peace-building efforts through local economic development, still by BDA. This was done through strengthening organizational capacities, specifically the Bangsamoro Development Agency, to implement the community-based enterprises and supply chains to create more employment opportunities for disadvantaged groups in the communities. Poor people, poorest of the poor. Yan ang mga disadvantaged groups. Specific projects, conduct of seminars, humanitarian interventions, health projects, livelihood projects, provision of water facilities, many others. What else next? Next, please. USAID sponsored peace building in Marawi City. Because Marawi is a new experience, although it was already around 3 years ago, or almost 4 years ago, but no complete or successful peace building action has been done yet. USA, the United States Arm for International Development. Is that correct, Dr. Shem? United States Assistance or Aid for International Development, USA. Yes, Doc? United States?
Yes, that's right. United States Assistance for International Development.
Okay. So peace building in Marawi City in collaboration with the Philippine government, development organizations, civil society, and the private sector, USAID is advancing durable solutions. Aside from other provinces, for example, USAID is helping Barm Health, no? Doc? No? Aside from this, in Marawi alone, USAID's projects stimulate the economy through supporting small businesses, expanding livelihoods, training displaced youth and adjust adults for workforce readiness, and offering business sustainability training for the entrepreneurs formerly operating in Marawi's most affected area. USAID works with local partners to strengthen social bonds between displaced and host communities through youth sports events, cultural heritage activities, local governments, town halls, and small-scale community infrastructure projects. We continue. To bolster the long-term revitalization of Marawi and its surrounding areas, USAID is continuing to partner with the Philippine government to help restore public services like water and electricity, and will sustain work with communities to expand economic development, promote peaceful dialogue, and improve health and education system. You know what? Marawi is one of the places that is near Lake Lanao. And Lake Lanao is the source of the Napocor water. Diyan galing yung kuryente, tubig, na generated na Napocor. Ano bang tawag? Is that Napocor? No. There's a different name. And yet, previously, before the Marawi War, there were problems in water and electricity. So the Maranaos organized Salam, Save Lake Lanao movement, in order to help themselves and help Lake Lanao. This is a good peace-building initiative. Even the law enforcers help in restoring Lanao Lake. Okay. USAID partner with Bangon Marawi. So USAID, the funding institutions will not work directly like Americans coming, and they will partner with local organizations. Bangon Marawi Chamber of Commerce and Industry to organize Marawi Business Forum and Marawi Lanao Agribusiness Forum. And then USAID constructed and handed over 2 climate resilient trading centers in Pegapo and Kapay municipalities, Kapay, for internally displaced entrepreneurs. USAID's programs have facilitated over 50 interreligious group dialogues and trained more than 200 key leaders from Marawi and the surrounding region on foundation peacebuilding. I chose USA because, although they are not the ones doing, I am also showing to you how a funder can be a partner. Okay, next. Continue, please. Hinay? Mahina talaga ang... Okay. USAID has trained more than 330 displaced entrepreneurs in enterprise management and offered micro grants to more than 100 displaced entrepreneurs previously located in Marawi's most affected area so that they can restart their businesses. USAID has handed over livelihood micro grants that have benefited more than 1,100 citizens from displaced and host communities, as well as social cohesion grants that have benefited more than 2,200 citizens. USAID helped forge partnerships with 5 private firms: Coca-Cola, Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, Philippine Chamber of Commerce. Coca-Cola. So dapat mag-inom na ang mga maranaw ng Coca-Cola. And industry, Eco Store and Pilmico Foods, leveraging resources to jointly implement livelihood recovery activities. Ito din, no? Yung USAID, but because they are not the ones offering the money. These local organizations or corporations are asking financial aid from them. So they cannot also refuse. They can say, oh, Coca-Cola, you are very bad. You destroy the health of people. Hindi sila pwedeng, oh, ikaw, pilmi ko. Ano yung, saan ba galing ang mga ano mo, yung mga ginagawa mo sa pagkain? Galing sa genetically modified organisms. So hindi pwedeng magbigay kami ng support because this is an emergency situation. USA just felt they should help. Okay, next please. Next. Now what are the realizations? Peace initiatives can be lonely without financial assistance. So you cannot say, if you want peace, people should work for themselves. They should not depend on others. Pero lugmok na hindi na makabangon by themselves. Kung makabangon man sila, maghanap muna ng pagkain. Hindi doon sa restoration of social relationships. Hindi doon. May mga priorities sila. Peace initiatives can be lonely without financial assistance. Is that your realization also? When you ask people to attend a meeting, what they would look forward to is coffee and bread. I have been to many communities. We conducted an FGD, focus group discussion, in one of the communities in Matano. An FGD would require only around 15 participants. But we thought of bringing parang isang sakong tinapay. Bakit? Pag nandoon na yung nanay, lalapit man yung mga anak. 4 na anak, 5 anak. Tawagin niyo pa yung asawa niya. Alam nga naman, magtingin lang sila. So bread, small bread lang. Yung mga local bread na ginawa ng mga bakery dyan sa Cotabato City. Yun lang. Masaya na sila. And you know what? It turned out to be a meeting because everybody participated. They were asking, why are you choosing only these 15 people? What about us? I am the head of this organization. I am the... why would you not include me? Ganun ha, mahirap. kung ano ang giplano natin sa ating syudad, baka hindi yan ang mangyayari. That's one of the difficulties. But you do not offend people. Because once you offend people, ito ang ginawa ng yung Spanish organization gani, who taught the Iranians how to farm. Oh, the people said they were always offended by the workers of that organization. The Spaniards went to them. Na kami, we were already talking. Ilan ang kape na dadali natin? Alangan na para lang doon sa 15 katao. Hindi, syempre. Before the 15 came, mayroon ng mga 20 advance party nila. Mga 30 advance party. Will you tell them not to enter the venue? You cannot tell them that. Pero kami na ang ayaw niyong papasukin. Amin itong health center na ito. Hindi niyo kami papasukin. Kayo from Cotabato City, mga salta lang kayo dito. Ganyan. Ganyan kapait ang peace building. Ganyan kapait magtrabaho sa communities. Probably it is true that when you take part of their time, you are bothering them. This is why for programs with external funding, there is budget for transportation back and forth and food allowance during travel. Sa mga seminars na ako ang invited na speakers by siguro held in Marco Polo, because people will not attend the seminar if dyan lang sa Cotabato i-hold. Kaya nakatulog ang Marco Polo, mga waterfront, mga big hotels here in Davao because of this funding. So hindi siya madali. It's not easy. So kung peace building, there should be a collaboration so that it would not be difficult for you to do. And do not forget to link with the local government officials. Sila talaga ang core niyo. Baka palayasin kayo. Sino ba kayo? At ano kayo? Philanthropist? Maraming pera na gustong tumulong? O sige, dalhan nyo kami ng ulam araw-araw. Dalhan nyo kami ng tinapay. Pero ang tinapay, bread, sugar, coffee, these are the very basic things that they will look for when you go to communities to do local peace initiatives or peace building actions. Do not forget that. No? Dapat may dala talaga kayo. When we went to the IP community in Purok Misulo, in Libungan, dami naming dala. And they were really very happy because these people really are hungry. And we told them that mga baon namin yun. Baon din kami, pero we share our baon. Hindi pwedeng sabihan na, nagbigay kami sa inyo, parang kawawa naman kayo, wala naman kang pagkain. May mga principles tayo in peace building and doing local peace initiatives. Even in community policing, there are principles in community development that we have to follow. There are principles or orders or command from the higher command of the police. But there are also ethics in community development and community policing from community development workers that we have to follow. Okay, so is that the last? I think that's the last. Next slide, please. Peace building is often done by NGOs, CSOs, and POs. This is why Katuntaya organized the CSO, the consortium. Okay, so continue. The last slide. What about you? What can you do? Anong magagawa ninyo? Humanitarian action for the poorest of the poor. When you give, and that constitutes humanitarian action for the poorest of the poor, you are excused anytime you do that. But please link with the local government units. Pag pumunta kayo, dala-dala ang mga tabo, mga chinelas, mga ano. For the poorest of the poor, you are excused. Wala tayong ethics na nasasagasaan dito. If it is capacity building, needs assessment muna, no? Needs assessment. Kung ano ang kailangan nila. At hindi kayo ang magsabi sa kanila na yun ang kailangan nila. You will not be the ones to tell them. It is they who would tell you, who should tell you what they need. And then, kung ano ang ma-provide nyo, okay, go. So ito, capacity building, peace education, yun lang, for example, clean up drive, tree planting, or maybe vegetable planting in cans or in plastic containers. Tanim nyo na daan sa mga cans, ihang sa kanilang mga bahay or fences, para di na sila maghanap ng lata. For all you know, kahit lata, wala sila. Kasi hindi man sila bumibili ng gatas. Saan sila kukuha ng lata? So yun, tanim nyo na daan. Tapos ibigay sa kanila. Pero bago magbigay, ceremony muna, and then pakikipag-usap sa kanila to tell them in advance that you are doing that initiative or humanitarian action. Tree planting, I know the teachers and the police and the government and non-government workers of government, private institutions have already done this so much. Ang problema, when we plant trees, we leave the newly planted seedlings. Iwan natin at hindi natin sinisiguro kung tumubo ba siya. Kayo, ilang libo na ang natanim ninyo. Ilan ang tumubo out of what you have planted. Ang dami na dyan. No? For the law enforcers, suggested local peace initiative, gather laws affecting common people. Translate these laws to the local language. Explain to the people what the laws are saying. Mga batas. O mga police, work with community police assigned and with the local government officials. Anong mga batas? For example, itong mga orders ng IATF, mga terms nila. Ano yung no movement day, ano yung F1, ano yung F4, mga ganoon. Because these are defined in English. You translate this. This can be one of the local initiatives of law enforcement. Or kahit anong batas. Batas ng, for example, the law that prohibits burning, Clean Air Act. Many people do not know this act. Ano bang batas ito? So mga pulis sa inyong peacebuilding initiative, kunin nyo itong mga batas na ito, ipatranslate ninyo sa mga Cebuano, mga Ilonggo, mga Moro, Iranon, in Magindanawan, ipatranslate ninyo in different languages. That can be a local peace initiative. What will that do? Of course, that will prevent them from committing criminalities because they might have been violating these laws and which they do not know that laws had been formulated already to this effect. Okay, so can you add to the list, to the suggestion? Can you add? I am done. Thank you for listening, and it is now your turn to give your suggestion also.
Okay, so much, Doc Cantallopez. A
Yes.
good clap, everyone, Doctor.